So I don't know how many of you are aware of what frameworks are or why they're being used, but basically a framework sets out the terms and conditions that interpreters are being asked to work to. There's been 3 that have been used so far, and it's been suggested that access to work will eventually be contracted under a framework. So frameworks will instigate its own cap on the hourly amount for any contract, and any agency administering access to work budget for a deaf person will use this amount to cut the rates of pay for an interpreter so that it comes in below budget. The fees offered to professional interpreters will therefore be below market rates, and that means that interpreters will just simply not be able to work for these amounts. The result of all this is that even fewer interpreters are going to become available to work within access to work settings, and the long-term effect will be forcing interpreters to leave the profession ultimately. We feel very strongly that the DWP is attempting to control the market, and by using a framework agreement that doesn't follow the market rates that interpreters charge, that it's going to have a huge detrimental effect on the deaf community. So if I can just give the context to all this, the DWP Marketplace Review itself actually states that there is a shortage of British Sign Language interpreters, and that was actually, those questioned on that in Geneva, as Paul just mentioned. We've had 2 significant events with framework agreements recently, which again weren't included in the DWP Marketplace Review. The first one of those is the boycott of Language Line Solutions. They held a national framework contract, and they attempted to reduce interpreters' fees by 1/3, which is a massive amount for anyone to take as a pay cut. So interpreters boycotted those contracts, and those contracts alone made it very clear we were happy to do the work, but we needed to be paid sustainable rates. It took 7 months, and we held firm, and eventually they backtracked and they agreed to pay our proper market rates. And so that's one significant, thank you. That's one significant event that hasn't actually been considered and isn't in the Marketplace Review. The second thing is a major contract holder was Pearl Linguistics. Now they actually went into liquidation and cited the frameworks for that liquidation. They explained that they just weren't able to function. As a business model, it doesn't work because they don't know how many end customers they're going to get. And so budgeting or being able to manage cash flow is impossible. And again, that has a huge effect on interpreters who then aren't paid, and that then affects deaf people, and the whole thing is a mess. So we're already aware that there's another agency that we feel is going the same way at the moment, and we don't expect will last very much longer. So it's clearly not a sustainable model for either the agencies that get in the contracts, the interpreters, but especially not the deaf end users who just won't get the service they need. Another negative impact of having a framework is the lack of choice and control. Many deaf people have a pool of interpreters who they choose, and they have specific interpreters they will like for specific tasks within their job role. So for example, if you've got, I don't know, a finance meeting, you'd want an interpreter that you know is competent at finance. If you've got a team building meeting, you might want someone who's very personable, so you pick and choose who you want for particular aspects of your job, and that's always worked very, very well. So we are very concerned about what's happening, and we're very clear that we will not support a framework for access to work, and we will do everything we can to oppose it. Thank you. Oh, just remembered, sorry. I've got over on the table just a very brief summary. It's a dossier of disgrace about national frameworks, so please do take a copy before you leave. Thank you.